Good evening, everyone. Ian Patrick here. It's been a while, and boy, I have been dying to get back in the swing of things of watching classic movies and giving you all some reviews. I finally am in a good place with a new job where I feel like I am more stable, I have more free time, I'm happier, and I just have more time to give you all some good classic reviews. Tonight I have ourselves a good romance picture with Joan Crawford. Tonight we're reviewing The Shining Hour. It came out in 1938. It's an MGM film, and it's only an 80-minute film. It's an excellent little 80-minute film, in my opinion. It's a drama romance. It was directed by Frank Borzage, and it stars, as I said, Joan Crawford, an MGM film. Joan Crawford, she plays Olivia Riley, and she plays a woman, a dancer in a nightclub. She's like a world famous dancer, I guess. And it takes place during modern times, meaning like modern times in 1938. She plays a dancer in a club in New York City, and she's been married several times. We do know that much about her at the start. Melvyn Douglas, who, I've seen him in quite a bit of movies, and I always sort of say that I'm not a big fan of him, but he's really starting to rub off on me. So I'm really liking Melvyn Douglas more and more, and I really liked his character in this movie, and he did a great job. He plays Henry Linden. The Linden family, you'll hear Linden a lot in this movie. The Linden family is a wealthy family. He plays sort of this conservative, wealthy businessman from Wisconsin. Sort of clashes with Olivia's more free, liberal New York City lifestyle. His brother is played by Robert Young, and his name is David Linden. He seems to be even more conservative than his brother, Henry Linden. And so he plays his younger brother. He starts out sort of super conservative. We'll get into it when we talk about the plot. Margaret Sullavan, she plays Judy Linden. She's sort of this small town Wisconsin girl who is, from the get go, you can just tell she's obsessed with her husband. She's married to David Linden. And then we have Bainter played, and she plays Hannah Linden, which is the older sister in the Linden family, and she's never been married. Sort of this, I don't want to say witch of a character, but she's never been married, and she's sort of obsessed with the Linden culture and upholding the Linden name, and she's obsessed with her brothers and especially Henry. And then we have Hattie McDaniel. She has a role in this. She plays Olivia's maid, and her name in the movie is Belvedere. So as I said, it takes place during modern times. It takes place modern times, and before I get into the plot, I do want to mention that I really think that this movie had an excellent screenplay, which is what to me made the movie so great. It's just the conversations in the movie feel so natural, and there's just a lot of witty quotes in it, and it's just an excellent screenplay. And the screenplay was by Jane Murfin and Ogden Knox, I think is what I wrote, or no, Ogden Nash. I apologize. So it takes place in modern day New York City. It opens up in a nightclub, and we see Olivia. We see Joan Crawford's character doing a beautiful dance. And interestingly, we've seen Joan Crawford dance earlier in an earlier review, Laughing Sinners, and I was so impressed with how good of a dancer she was and how beautiful of a dancer she was. And apparently this was in her dance scene in this. It's the first time in 5 years that she's done a dance scene in a movie, and she was excellent. She did a really good job. You can tell she's very talented. So it opens up, she's dancing in a nightclub, And Melvyn Douglas's character Henry walks in, and you can tell he's this rich guy, and he's watching her. Uh, and we learn after the dance that basically they're lovers, and he wants to marry her. And he walks in. He's got, the pencil stash, looking very dashing. And you can tell that he loves her more than she loves him. He's just sort of obsessed with her. He right away, not obsessed, but he right away says, I want to marry you, please. And I guess we can sort of assume that he's been asking her for a while now, and she just always rejects him. But finally, Olivia agrees to marry him. At first, she asks, why me? Why do you want to marry me so badly? And mind you, she's been married a few times in the past. So, but he sort of gives, from what I recall, sort of a lame response, just kind of like, because I want you. But she agrees to marry Henry, and it's happy. They go backstage. They're backstage, and then we see a new character enter the nightclub, and it's funny. I'm glad I remembered this. His brother, David Linden, played by Robert Young, walks in the club, and he's in, like a suit, just like a suit like a lawyer would wear. And when he goes into the nightclub, they're like, "Sir, formal wear only." And in my mind, I'm like, "What? He's wearing a suit." But back then, of course, you had to wear like a tuxedo. So the suit isn't good enough, but in today's standards, of course, his suit, I'm like, he looks great. So he sort of walks in, and he barges in the back, and we can kind of tell that he's not happy about his brother marrying a woman who's been married several times in the past, and also she's a dancer, and he comes from sort of a, Wisconsin conservative background. And so it's interesting, he goes to, I assume it's like Henry's condo in New York, this fancy condo flat, and he realizes he's too late. And when he meets Olivia, he's just such a big jerk to Olivia, and it's not a good first meeting because she ends up slapping him, because he's just very rude to her. I can't remember the exact quote, but I can't stress this enough, that the script in this movie just felt like real conversations, and like we're witnessing sort of real drama between the characters of the movie, because I can totally see something like this happening in real life, where an aristocrat or just a wealthy family doesn't approve of the oldest son marrying some nightclub dancer who's been married several times in the past. So I just really loved the realism of this 1938 movie. So they have a horrible first meeting, and it's sort of like, okay, well, he's gonna have to accept that they're gonna get married, and it sort of cut scenes to the wedding, and we can sort of see Olivia, she sees David there, and it's sort of awkward because of the little argument they had prior to the wedding, but gonna have to accept it. So then we cut scene to Wisconsin. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful scene, really, where Olivia and Henry, they're on a little boat, and they're slowly coming up, and it sort of reminds me of the scene in The Shining where they're driving up to the hotel. It's like the boat is slowly coming in, and you just know that they're bringing a storm of drama to the Linden household, which is on this beautiful mansion on a lake house in Wisconsin. You just know that change is coming with them. And here is when poor Olivia meets I love the word suffocating Linden family, because you just feel for her whenever she's with the family. She meets well, she's already met Henry's brother David, but she meets David's wife Judy, who's nice, but you can tell she's sort of pushed around by the family, by the Lindens, and we meet Hannah Linden, who is just awful from the start. She's really awful to Olivia. But you know what is so interesting about this movie is the whole picture. Basically, I'm thinking, what kind of Joan Crawford movie am I watching? Is she going to be rude Joan Crawford? Will she be a brat in this? Or is she going to be sort of the kind and understanding Joan Crawford, the loving Joan Crawford? So what I loved best about this movie is I was always wondering, what kind of person is Olivia going to be? What kind of person is Olivia? Is she, going to betray her husband Henry? Is she actually kind, or is she just this loose New York dancer? You really don't know for the majority of the movie, and the answer that we end up learning is that she's human, she's flawed. She's not a black and white character, main character, which really puts this movie above a lot of other classics in my opinion, because she's not just this great loving wife. She's not this awful wife who is having an affair. She's really in the middle. So she meets the Lindens, and it's suffocating, and it reminds me actually of my dad. He grew up in a sort of a classic family like that, where they all just sit around and they discuss life, and you can hear the grandfather clock ticking, and there's no TV or radio on. And there's one female in the family who sort of nags everyone and gets on everyone's nerves, which is definitely Hannah's character. And this household is just suffocating and life sucking. It's like sucking all the fun out of Olivia, because Olivia loves to dance, she loves music, but Hannah and just the Linden name just takes all the fun out of her. And Hannah really is just an unbearable character. So you wonder, how is David Linden going to be with Olivia's character? Because the last time, obviously, we saw David was a huge jerk with Olivia. But now, they go, it's like right away, we kind of see a change in David. But right away, he starts playing the piano in the house, and Olivia loves music, so she kind of, she's eyeballing David now, and Robert Young was a good-looking guy, so she's just sort of starting to check out David, and they start going on horseback rides, and David starts just totally coming on to Olivia, and it was actually really annoying to me. David became very annoying, because it's like, dude, you're just totally love bombing your brother's new wife. Just a really bad brother. So there you have another really flawed character in David. But the interesting thing about David is that he has had this plain mayonnaise life upbringing his entire life, where he's been with the same girl, Judy, his entire life. So this firecracker of a woman, beautiful exotic woman, comes in and dances, and he's sort of just blown away by it. So you can kind of understand why David is infatuated with Olivia. So the characters are really interesting in this movie, in my opinion. It's not just some silly soap opera, as a lot of reviews call it. But yeah, he instantly confesses that he loves her. But David, it's just a really interesting perspective. David has an interesting perspective, just coming from such a boring upbringing, I guess all American upbringing, and then this city slicker dancer girl comes in and just throws him off. But the big question of the movie is, will Olivia be a good moral wife and be faithful to Henry? And honestly, I was nervous. I really was nervous about this the entire picture, which made it this short little 80-minute, film just really enjoyable and sort of suspenseful. Like, is she gonna? Because I really liked Henry. I really liked Melvyn Douglas's character. So I was like, please don't do it. But you can kind of tell she starts falling for the brother David. So throughout the film, she continues to push off David's annoying advances. And it's like, man, this is your brother's wife. Stop it. So, and all during the film, meanwhile, Olivia and Henry, they're building this grand lake house mansion across the lake from where the Linden home is. So it's sort of, they're building their dream home across the lake. That's always going on in the background. This colonial style mansion, beautiful. And Hannah also throughout the film just continues to be worse and worse to Olivia. And, in a way, I don't blame her for distrusting Olivia so much, because it goes back to that feeling I was having the whole movie is, can I really trust Olivia? Is she going to be faithful to Henry? So in a way, Hannah's annoying, but also you sort of kind of understand why Hannah feels that way. This dancer, New York girl who's been married several times, she's going to ruin the Lindens. So Hannah also is a very interesting character. And finally, they have this nighttime sort of barbecue party hosted by the Lindens, of course. And this was like the big night of drama in the movie. So Olivia ends up telling Hannah off, firstly, because Hannah's unbearable that night about everything, about what she's wearing. And Olivia she's fed up with it. She's like, every time you're mean or rude to me, I'm going to be this much ruder and meaner to you. So I'm going to come right back at you even worse. And then at that point, you're kind of like, good for you. And then the town fool, who throughout the film is kind of pervy with her, like trying to look at her legs up her dress. And he's drunk that night, and he follows Olivia to where she's alone at moonlight. It's a beautiful scene, really very scenic. And he basically tries to rape her, and she, knocks him down. He tries to molest her, and he can't. But then, of course, David comes along, of all people, and he starts advancing, love bombing her again. And she gives in eventually, and they end up kissing. And she says a really interesting quote, like, okay, we've done it. Now what? It's almost like she's experienced it before with her previous marriages. Like, okay, we're having an affair. Like, you got what you want. Now what are we going to do? But she ends up running off, and she feels awful because she really does love Henry. She loves Henry, but then, David is just sort of messing with her mind and her emotions. So she runs off, and she tells Henry, please, can we get out of this place? Let's just go on our honeymoon. And of course, honeymoons back then, they weren't like a week or two. Honeymoons back then were like half a year or a year long, where you go to Europe and you just live abroad. And also throughout the film, poor Judy is realizing that she's losing her husband to Olivia. And note the quote that Hannah earlier in the film says to Judy. It's a biblical quote that's something along the lines of, "He who digs a pit will fall into it." So, Judy she always was nice and said, go with Olivia, go horseback riding, have fun, you know, spend time together. She dug her own pit, and they ended up really falling in love with each other. But at this time, she realizes basically she's lost her husband to Olivia. She can see it in their eyes every time she catches them alone together. And at this point, I don't like Olivia. So I don't. This is when I'm like, man, Olivia, how could you do this to Henry? But poor Henry, he's clueless. He's just this rich businessman, always busy. So Hannah does the unthinkable later towards the end, and she gets desperate because Henry agrees to go on the honeymoon with Olivia, and Hannah gets desperate. She doesn't want Henry to leave because she thinks Henry will be gone for life, forever. So she burns down at nighttime. Very dramatic scene. She burns down their lake house mansion that they're building across the way. Everyone runs down to the mansion. It's very dramatic. They're putting out the water. They're trying to put it out. And before they even went there, Judy had told Olivia that night, like, basically, I want you and David to run away together. I want you to blow up the Linden family. Go be lovers. You need to just go off and run away. You'll divorce with Henry. I'll divorce, whatever. Just go be happy together. But the fire happens, and everyone runs to the fire, including Judy and Olivia, Henry, David, and Judy does something very crazy, very dramatic, of course. She runs into the burning house on fire, because I assume she's just committing suicide. She's so depressed at this point. And Olivia surprises us, and she runs in after her, and she picks up her body. And back then they didn't have crazy special effects, so the place is burning down, and she picks her up and she takes her out, and you see real fire and the ceiling collapsing, and she saves Judy. So everyone goes back to the home, and Judy, it's very dramatic. She's, in critical condition, and we see she's bandaged up, and it reminded me of the Twilight Zone, that episode where the woman has her face wrapped. And Olivia gives sort of this little speech to David that, I've learned a lot here. We don't really love each other, and you don't love me. You need to really focus on your marriage with Judy. Judy, we're not good people, David. You and me, we're not good people. Good people are Judy and Henry. And it's true. There really are people, just really great people like Judy and Henry. And so she accepts sort of defeat, and by now Henry is also sort of nervous about his brother having an affair with Olivia. But Olivia tells Henry, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to run off, and basically we're going to get a divorce. I don't think she says that word, but basically we're through. I learned a lot. And he sort of just lets her walk out. And of all people, Hannah comes up to Henry and says, go to her. Don't let her get away. She's saved. In a weird way, Olivia has saved the Linden family. Don't let her get away. She's perfect for this family. She's sacrificed a lot, and we all have learned from her. And so in a quick Hollywood fashion, Melvyn Douglas, Henry runs out, jumps in the car with Olivia and Belvedere, and sort of, that quick Hollywood ending from back then. Where are we going for our honeymoon, or what's the weather like in wherever? and it's a happy ending because we can assume that they're going to end up happily together, Henry and Olivia. So I give this movie a 3.5 stars, a very strong 3.5 stars. I wouldn't say it's a perfect film just because I didn't care too much for the ending. But really, it is such a talent that's been lost, to where short 80-minute movies can tell such a great story, because it's a short film and we got so much out of it. So it's a lost talent, it's a lost art. So I'll show you my VHS cover, and I'll show you the back. It's got a good photo of the gang. So yeah, I just didn't care for the ending too much, and I don't think it warrants, it wasn't the best story ever, so I can't give it like a perfect star. It's not like. And then I have a tiny little photo of the gang. You can see in the upper left. I'm trying to show you it. Get out of the way, Clark Gable. I don't know if you all can see that very well, but the shadow's kind of in the way. I did not expect this review to go on so long, but I had a lot to talk about with it, and it's been a while since I've made a video, so hopefully you all are still with me. So now we can read from my Joan Crawford biography. At several important moments, both Joan Crawford and Margaret Sullavan came close to redeeming the picture with their restraint and dignity. So this author and most reviewers do not like this movie very much. In fact, I kind of gather that they think it's forgettable, but for all the reasons I talked about, I think this movie's great. But then something absurd occurs in the story, and everyone is left to founder. A singularly wooden performance by Robert Young and an overwrought one by Faye Bainter are at least partly to blame. So Robert Young, I can kind of see that. He was a little stale, but I thought Faye, Hannah's character, was excellent. I thought she did a great job. The picture, which begins with Joan's first long dancing duo in 5 years, is notable for her insertion of several pieces of her own autobiography, improvised on the spot between takes and placidly accepted by Borzage. Borzage. I couldn't go to school much, she says in the character. I was too busy doing shirts in the laundry, and when I finally landed that job in the choir, it was too late for school. So she ad-libbed that apparently in the movie. The experience of working with Margaret Sullavan was, however, extremely important in the development of Joan's emotional life. Maggie, as friends called her, had been briefly married to Henry Fonda and to William Wyler. And she had contracted a third marriage with the theatrical agent Leland Hayward. Their daughter Brooke was born in July 1937, and Maggie often brought the 16-month baby to the set, where Joan, for one, was thoroughly delighted with the tiny, well-behaved visitor. She helped Maggie with baby chores and looked after Brooke when her mother was called to the set for close-ups. To Joan, Maggie's life seemed complete, more fulfilled than her own. Quote, "The baby and I were devoted to each other," Joan recalled, "and I confess I permitted her to do what I never permitted a child of my own to do. She wrote on my dressing room walls with lipstick." So the review went on for a long time, but like I said, I really liked the movie. I hope you all enjoyed it too and like it for the same reasons. I'm glad to be back, and hopefully I can bring some more classic reviews for you all.